What's up, everybody? This is BakaBites. I'm Frankfurter. That is Magically Average. And today we are going to be talking about the winter 2024 season in review. We are pretty much done with the winter season. There's maybe like an episode, maybe two left for the season. So we figured now is as good of any time as to reviewing the season. So I don't know about you, but I've gotten about 10 shows probably on my list.
I think I ran around 7 or 8.
Okay. So we're about the same because I probably have 10 that I've been watching that I have not like completely caught up on. I know that I'm like an episode behind on like Metallic Rouge, bottom tier character Tomozaki, and The Witch and the Beast. So like there's a couple that I'm behind on like an episode, and then there's Undead Unluck, which I'm completely far behind like by 8 episodes.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, let's start off with the bad. What was the most disappointing thing that you watched this season?
Honestly, there wasn't anything disappointing. I was trying to think through all the anime that I've been watching this winter season, and truthfully, this was one of the most impressive seasons of anime in recent memory. I mean, obviously, we haven't watched every single anime that's come out, and I know I've watched like 2 that I dropped. One was The Witch and the Beast, which I just did not enjoy. And I'm pretty sure there was another one that I tried, and it was Gushing Over Magical Girls.
Yeah, I was about to say Gushing was
like,
probably the biggest doo-doo of the
yeah.
But no, there's a couple other for me, but yeah, for you.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and in Gushing Over Magical Girls, it wasn't even that it was doo-doo. It was just that they took a lot of liberties with the manga, which is a kind of a shame because the manga is really funny.
Yeah.
And they just went insanely just ecchi, hentai, pervy with it, and I was like, nope, I'm good. But yeah, no, I mean, all of the anime that I watched this season was incredible. And it ranged from like action adventure to just very laid back casual slice of life to really romance heavy anime. Like there was a wide gamut to drama too. There was drama, the different genres all had just such strong contenders that I do believe this was one of the best overall well-rounded seasons of anime over the last probably honestly like 2 years.
Dang, fair enough. Yeah, no, I agree that this is like one of the most impressive seasons we've had in a while, if not the last, like you said, 2 years. Probably a better season in 2022. But it escapes me now as to what that may have been. But yeah, there for me were a couple stinkers. I know that I had read a chapter of Gushing Over Magical Girls, and I thought it was funny enough. I was like, oh, okay, this will be a bit risque for what it is, but I think it'll be, funny because there's good comedy to it. And it just was, no, it was not that.
Yeah.
The comedy was there. We'll say, like, for all intents and purposes, like, episode 1 was funny, but it was way more etchier than the source material was, and just for that, you and I were both out.
Yeah, like I did a comparison, like a 1-to-1 comparison between the manga and the anime, and I was shocked.
Yeah,
because I even picked it out. I was like, "There's no way I read this. Like this scene did not happen." And sure as shit, it didn't. So yeah, it was an immediate turnoff for sure.
And there were a couple shows that I watched that I definitely dropped. Some were just like episode 1, where it's like, let's give this a shot, let's see how it is, and it just wasn't great. I think the first one being the Sengoku Yoko, which was basically just about yokai and other otherworldly monster type things. I was just like, I was unimpressed by episode 1. I was just like, I don't need to continue this. I have seen enough. I don't need to. There was another one that I watched that I don't remember off the top of my head, and I'm trying to like. I will get to that, but that is not it.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. I'm trying to. It was another one on Crunchyroll that I watched in episode 1, and I'm stalling for time by talking in circles. That I just was not a fan of. It wasn't Mr. Villain's Day Off, because I enjoyed that for what it was, but I knew that wasn't my show, so I stopped it.
Was it? I mean, you
It
wouldn't have
was
watched
one
any of the.
it was one that was suggested to us as well, and I'm just like, "Which one was it?" It was
Oh, was it Crimson? No,
no, it
Crimson
was like
Red was.
Delusional Monthly Magazine. I
Oh,
watched episode
that
1 of that. Or was that last season?
we
No, that was this season.
no, that was this season. I'm still surprised that that was suggested to us because when we read the synopsis and watched the trailer, it looked awful.
Excuse me.
Like it looked real bad.
Yeah, I mean, we were pitched to it as like a Saturday morning cartoon type of goofiness, which it was, but it also wasn't great in my opinion
Yeah.
for Saturday morning cartooniness. So that one I definitely dropped overall. And then the biggest stinker to me was Buchigiri, like you were saying, and which I was going to
Yeah.
get to. I watched the first 3 episodes of it. I couldn't make heads or tails of if I enjoyed it or not. It wasn't necessarily an action anime, and it wasn't necessarily a drama anime, and it wasn't necessarily a comedy anime. It was somewhere in the middle, and it just did not work for me. The art, like, it tried so hard to be an action anime, but like each action scene was literally just like one punch. Like the kid would just throw one
What?
punch, and then like
Punch.
whoever he punched would just come back out of it and just like fucking knock him out with
Mm.
another one punch. And it's like, that was your fight scene. It's like, great. This was not fun. Like, that wasn't good. The action was not good for me in the first 3 episodes. And then it's like, cool. What about the comedy? It was trying so hard, I felt like, to be a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure type of comedy with some of the spirits and just power ups, etc. And it just fell flat for me. I just, it didn't really hit the punchline for me. So Strike Two was there, and then what I just said, comedy action, and I don't even remember my third fucking point because it just wasn't great. Um,
Animation. I know the
no,
animation was kind of
the animation
funky.
was okay. Like I didn't mind it. Like it was okay. Just the show was, I thought it was going to be good. I thought it was going to be fun. It was a Mappa original. It was like great. And it just turned out to be bland as can be. And I mean, I'm not the only one that thinks this. Like the scoring on Mal currently is a 6.83. So like
Ooh,
that's whenever you're in the sixes on Mal, you know you've got a just absolute mid-tier show.
yeah.
But yeah, I really wanted to like Buchigiri because it's an original show. I really want to support originals. But this just didn't hit any of the marks at all.
Mm.
It just was boring as can be. So I think for me the biggest stinker of the season definitely was that. I mean, there's another show that we'll get to later in the show or podcast that I thought had a lot of potential that just also was not great, but I found it a lot more enjoyable than that. So yeah, but those are the bads. Those are the what we kind of dropped, what we didn't enjoy. Let's go on to what was your top 3, and then we can go into what were the other shows that we watched that we would,
Oh,
kind of put underneath that. So let's start. If you had to
ugh.
put a number on it, what would be your number 3 show of the
Oh,
season?
my number three.
Mm-hmm.
My God, that is incredibly challenging.
And I'll say that you
um,
could use like the shows that were coming over as a like a core 2.
yeah. Well, so I'm gonna. Okay, that's also good. I'm going to like because honestly, all of the anime I watched, they could all get first, second, or third in my list. I think they're very interchangeable. Honestly, it's just episode to episode and how strong it is. But the anime overall that I watched were all like, in my opinion, top tier. So I want to give shout outs to each kind of big genre block that I watched. So I guess I would say third for me would be Delicious and Dungeon. Um, that one was just a hoot.
Yeah.
That one had eh, like perfect delivery comedy that I look for in an anime. Like things that are just it's so natural. It's just like the flow of a conversation leading into jokes just had me going all the time. Not to mention it was done by Studio Trigger, which is one of my favorite studios in terms of their animation and the quality of the anime they produce too. It had all the different bits I wanted in an adventure type anime with the twist of it being like food centric. not to mention like monster food centric. I really enjoyed it. It was a very, very fun time. Every episode had its own little messaging and theme behind it. I thought that was great. Um, and
Focusing on a new cuisine each episode.
yeah, but again, it was like it wasn't like it was nothing was forced in it. It was all felt like it was just natural, which was it was nice to see because a lot of times you get like adventure style anime or dungeon centric anime, and it seems like they're trying to like either force comedy or they're trying to force these plot lines or whatever, and it just doesn't hit right. Like nothing really lands or sticks, and it feels kind of clunky. Delicious was like the complete opposite in that everything flowed smoothly with one another. All the characters were well built out. They all like with their unique personalities, they all bounced off each other in different ways. The progression of the anime too was great in that, you know, it was slow and methodical episode to episode, but was still like a hurried pace of like, hey, we have a mission, we got to get going, but it still like gave a lot of honor to the dungeon itself, and that like it's hard to traverse it. They didn't do like, you know, cheat codes and shortcuts to get through it, which is also appreciated.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would think it's I think it would have gotten more love if it wasn't on Netflix, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
I
and
saw things when it first came out, people were like, yes, this is gonna be great. And it just kind of plummeted, like fell off the face of the earth. I think people kind of forgot about it. And people reviewed it pretty poorly at the beginning too, which I thought was
odd.
astonishing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um
So I that would be my third.
I honestly that would be the show of the season for me if had I not lost access to Netflix at around episode 6. So for me, Delicious in Dungeon is a solid runner up just for the fact that I lost access to Netflix, so I'm way behind on that.
But
Um,
you've at least read it, so like
I've
you
read the
know.
entire series. I actually
Yeah.
picked up volume 13 last week before we went to PAX. Um, which was a fun time. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's only one more volume that we're waiting on before it's all out physically. But my stupid little pea brain couldn't take it anymore and had to read ahead and read it all. But for me, my number 3 show is gonna be Shangri-La Frontier, purely for the fact that this specific core 2, I enjoyed a hell of a lot more than I enjoyed core 1, which I thought core 1 is fantastic in its own right. For me, core 2, there was the battle with God, I forget the guy's name, but basically there was like a 5 episode long battle with just God dang it, I can't remember the samurai's guy's name, but basically a unique monster within the game. They had a like basically 5 part, 4 part battle, something like that. And it's
Hmm.
one of those things that it took a full volume for it to get through the battle, and I was like, please take your time with this, give us all the action, give us what give us a good fight scene. And they did that. They went full Demon Slayer on it. The ending clash between them was gorgeous. I think that because I enjoyed that arc so much and that they did it so well, that this is solidly my number 3. This is just a show that I've just been enjoying week to week. It's not by any means the most groundbreaking show. It's not the most think piece show, but it is a fun, fun show. It's like I won't equivalate it to going to see like Fast and the Furious turn your brain off like type of fun, but it is like you don't have to think about it too hard to just enjoy this show. It's a good time. The fight scenes when they do occur are great, and the characters are fun, and the video game world that they build has been fantastic. My only complaint is that there is a scene where they go to the actual developer after they defeat this unique monster. Sorry, spoilers. Um, uh, when they defeat the first unique monster and they go into the developer, into like the brains of the people behind it, and they're like freaking out because they went out of order for what unique monster should have died first.
Hmm.
And I really wish that, I mean, because I'm a little bit ahead in the source material, I really wish they kind of delved into that a bit more and just what their plans were to like fix that. So I don't know. To me, I really thoroughly enjoyed core two of Shangri-La Frontier. So yeah, but from there, I'm just gonna jump straight into my number two because you've been talking for a while. I'll talk for a while. For me, my number two is I I hate to snub solo leveling like this, but it's Apothecary Diaries. I I thought that it was a fantastic overall season, but core two specifically as well was great. I think that it started out a bit slow, but once because it almost seemed like they had switched gears into like she became like a Sherlock Holmes type character, and then they kind of brought everything together and all these pieces connected together. And I think
Mhm.
they did that in a very well and organic way and tied it to, back to her poisoning and or her love of poisons, etc. And to me, just that whole bringing it all together and then resolving a main plot line at the end of the season, um, I think that core two was almost strong, like if not stronger than core one. I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed the Apothecary Diaries. This was a show that my little sister, bless her heart, she was like, I don't care if I don't watch anything else this season. Apothecary Diaries is the show. You better fucking watch it. So I was like, okay, I will watch the show for you. You rarely like you will generally suggest something and I've already seen it. This is coming out. I will watch it for you. And I didn't think I was going to like it because, it takes a specific type of historical drama piece for me to really get into it. Like Vinland Saga is a great example because it's a great historical piece, but there are others like that yokai one that I watched episode 1 of earlier this season that I just didn't like. This really spoke to me on a different level. I think that they knocked this out of the park. I really enjoyed it. This is, yeah, cemented as my number 2 for sure.
Yeah, no, that makes my number two super easy because mine is also Apothecary Diaries. The only thing I would add is that season two felt a little bit more structured, and I I don't even want to say it's well paced because I thought season two was well paced. It season one moved at a very frantic pace, albeit it was still well like maintained throughout the entire season, like episode to episode. But like it started off with Mao Mao and her adopted dad, and then she gets kidnapped, and then she gets put in the palace, and then she gets she has this one role, and then they realize she's an apothecary, and then she becomes a taste tester, and then she gets put into another role, and then another role, and then another role,
And
and
then
then the season
fired.
ends. Right, and then fired, and then rehired, and then like season two, it was less about moving around and like exploring the palace and the inner workings of how everything operates and more about like the actual it felt like they finally got to the story of like now she's solving these mysteries and she's utilizing her knowledge of herbs and medicines to her benefit too, and the benefit of the others around her. um on top of everything you said, I think I enjoyed that aspect more of season two, which is why I would put it as my number two. But yeah, this anime is shockingly good. Like it should be on many people's list to watch, even if you're not an historical person. Mind you, it's not a one for one. It's not like these characters existed. It's more of just a tale of,
Yeah.
you know,
It's just a setting.
yeah. Um, but the drama piece to it, so well done, and it was very methodical in how they unraveled different stories throughout. More towards like the end of season one, but definitely throughout core two. We'll say core two because they announced that season two was in production at the very end.
Yeah, which I'm
Um,
very excited about.
yeah. Side note, a lot of anime I found that this season, a lot of anime seem to have announced that they're in works or have already like a set time frame on when their next season was going to be released,
Yeah.
which I liked. It wasn't like you get most of the time you're just kind of sitting there like, all right, I guess I gotta wait for the announcement, but it was like final ending. It's just nope, we're coming out soon. Get ready, and you're like,
Heck
all
yeah.
right, well I'll be damned. Yeah,
Kind of like
but yeah,
Oshinoko was just like, hey, season two's in production. And now we finally, this past weekend actually, we found out that Oshinoko season two is coming out in summer this year. So it's like,
yeah,
it took like
um,
a year, I guess, for it to fully, or, just over a
yeah.
year for. a next season, so it's kind of nice. Hopefully, we get season 2 relatively quickly, but I think it's about maybe a year, maybe half a year
Yeah.
until we get
And
the
then
next season.
I know Freerin had like
The
the
adventure
adventure.
will continue.
Yeah, the adventure will continue, but then I want to say they announced it somewhere online that season 2 is going to drop. I think end of this year, like 2024. Because Apothecary Diaries was like early 2025, so we have about a year, and then Freerin was like this year is season 2, which I was like, whoa,
I
no
will
way.
look into that real quick. But because I have not seen anything about that. I just saw like the season 2 will or the adventure will continue.
Yeah, I thought I saw confirmation of season 2.
The
I
only
could be
things I'm
lying.
seeing right now, no, it just might be hinting at a season 2.
Got it. All right.
So, yeah, which one of those sources is comicbook.com, and you know my thoughts on comicbook.com.
Yes, yes, I do.
But before we get into the number ones of the season, which I think both of us are on the same page for that, let's
I wouldn't be so sure.
oh, okay. Let's go over just some kind of middle tier shows and honorable mentions for your top shows of the season. So, is there anything in particular that you're just like that you want to discuss for this past season that just didn't crack the top 3 but weren't bad enough to be considered the worst show of the season?
Well, so I guess I'll kind of clump some of the remaining shows that I have together. So Hokkaido Girls are super adorable, excellent. It was like exactly what I wanted out of the manga. I thought it was really well done, and I did thoroughly enjoy it. It it, it kind of got overshadowed by another anime, but it was still a really good romance. Metallic Rouge was the original from Bones, and I wanted it to be better. I think they tried to do way more than what they needed to with it, like story wise. They got too deep into the weeds and just should have focused on mech
Yeah.
fighting, like super android, like whatever you want to call them. Like there was too many like layers to this massive cake they wanted to build that eventually just kind of toppled over, which is a shame because this was like their 20th, 5th anniversary project. So you wanted to see like something masterful out of it, and it just kind of puttered towards the finish line. It was still I still enjoyed it, but they definitely overworked it too much.
Yeah.
And then I think my other one would be "'Tis Time for Torture Princess." It was a fun one. Like it was cute. I was happy to see that it didn't get old and stale from like the
So
recurring
you
jokes.
did finish it then.
I haven't. I think I'm like one more episode.
Okay.
I'm close. I'm close. Yeah, but it was nice to just see that even after like episode 2, that they started to deviate away. Like there was still the same trope of like the torture aspect, quote unquote torture aspect,
Yeah.
but the settings and the situations and the fact that
All
they showed
unique.
more characters. Yeah, it started to get more unique, and they started to build out a little bit of like story to it as well. So that was nice. But like those three, I kind of clumped together. The one that stood out the most to me, and it's one that you already mentioned, and I'm sure I'll get laughed at about it, but I did truly and honestly love this show to death. It's Mr. Villain's Day Off. This show was wholesome to the umpteenth degree. Like I know people would say like, watch His Time for Torture, because yeah, that is really cute and adorable as well. But this anime hit way too many different emotions. Like at one point you could be watching and you're just laughing and chuckling at the humor of it, and then the very next sequence in the same episode, you could be bawling your eyes out. Like it's topsy turvy all the time. Like it keeps you on your toes. You don't know what's coming next, and it definitely, like, after episode 1, you completely kind of forgot the premise of this, and that the entire anime takes place on this villain's day off.
Yeah.
Like every single episode, well, I shouldn't say every episode, not to spoil anything, because there are good guys and bad guys in this, but like they focused on other characters. Like there was whole episodes dedicated to different groups of people. There were episodes where there was the least amount of talking ever in an anime. Like no words were spoken, it felt like. It was wild. But it was so cozy. And it's like the best way to describe this one is that it was just super cozy. It is the type of anime, now that season 1 is complete, it's the type of anime that you would want to like on a snowy day or rainy day or just like a day in on a weekend. You just get underneath a blanket, get a nice drink and snack, and you just binge it for like 4.5, 5 hours. It is wonderful. I absolutely love this one. It's like it's up there in terms of my comfy cozy slice of life series.
Fair enough. Yeah, for me, you had already mentioned Metallic Rouge. I don't think it, in my opinion, like I have similar opinions in which it had a lot of potential and it just didn't live up to that potential.
Yeah.
Mine isn't so much that they were building up a lot of things and it toppled over. It's that it had an identity and it never focused on any one thing specifically for a good amount of time to where like that would be the interesting hook or whatever. It
Hmm.
it just it kind of just didn't
Well, like
grab your interest.
it had it at the very
Yeah,
beginning,
the first
but
episode, it was like it was
but
almost like a facade. It just like it showed you something that was super promising, and then it just fucking deviated away from it. Like the cyberpunk world, like almost no longer existed. It was just a world filled with robots and humans. Like it just kind of lost that feel that everybody wanted. They're like, great, another cyberpunk anime. I'm fucking in. Let's do it. And it lost all of that world building to me. Like it gave us different world building in the sense of robots
well,
versus humans and wanting to become sentient and, not have to just obey orders. So like
yeah.
it was just disappointing in that respect. But
They 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 took what was effectively a very simple but entertaining premise and like created so many knots in it that it started to get confusing, a little bit dulled. Like first episode you're like yes, and then second episode you're like what the fuck is happening? And then by the seventh episode you're like I can't even make sense of these different organizations and who's with whom and who's fighting what and what is going on. I just wanted robots fighting robots.
yep.
Like they it's I was thinking in my head like what is this like? It's basically like untangling someone's headphones for them, like those shitty iPhone headphones, and being like, here
Yeah.
you go. And then having like the satisfaction of like, yes, finally. And then you just purposefully knock them again and go, "Uh,"
Here you go.
like throw them back. Yeah. Like they had it and then they just threw it away.
Yeah. No, I agree. And then the other one that I know that you talked about that I'll touch upon a little bit more is the "'Tis Time for Torture." I have finished this season. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like you said, that there was something unique about each episode. The shtick was the same, but it
Hmm.
it felt fresh episode to episode. That it was just like it held my interest week after week. I think halfway through the season, I told you I was like, "Hey, I'm really enjoying this show. I think it's funny. I think it's great. I just, as soon as they keep doing the same thing of like it's the same plot, like it's just food for an entire episode again, I'm out." But no,
Yeah.
they add going to the park, playing video games, going to a theme park. And then even in the last episode, which I won't ruin for you, they throw another fucking huge curveball at you, which was hilarious. I thought it was great. And it was the main plot, I'll call it, quote unquote, plot point of the episode. The main torture. We'll call it the main torture because there's multiple
Yeah.
tortures per episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was the main torture of the episode, and I thought it was absolutely fucking hilarious and genius. It was great. So to me, I really think that "'Tis Time for Torture Princess" was just something underappreciated this season that went way under the radar. Um, because the shtick can be the same, and sometimes that could be old for people. Like I know for me, the God dang it, what's the one where the adults are the working for the children's TV show? Life
You
Lessons with
always
her, yeah, Life
you
Lessons
always
with
bring this one up.
yeah, no, Life Lessons though for me, like that show is an example of like killing a shtick. It was the same shtick episode to episode, so it just kind of killed all momentum. While as
Yeah.
this, it's the same shtick but different, very different each time. So I truly appreciated that. The other one that you had touched upon that I wanted to discuss was Hokkaido Gals. I have not watched the last episode, but I'm caught up on the manga, so I know what happens. I thought that this was an enjoyable season. I think that if I'm not mistaken, they could have gone more into the harem territory, but they really shied away from it, or that, or they haven't even really gotten to it, and that's something to save for season two. But to me, it was a good slice of life. I enjoyed it. It was comfy, cozy as well. It wasn't overly like sexualized or fan servicey. Like it was just decently wholesome for a Garu being the main main character or main love interest for.
Uh, excuse me, sir.
I know
Three
mispronounced.
Gyarus. It's three Gyarus,
Okay, well,
all with different personalities. I hate that this one is categorized as like a harem because it's
out of
effectively.
technicality.
Yeah, no, I know. It's such a stark difference between how everything's portrayed in the anime versus how it's portrayed in the manga. Because in the manga, it almost feels like the focus is on the three girls of um like interest, we'll say,
Yeah,
and less about like our guy, kind of like him being the focal point, versus the anime where he seemed to be kind of the focal point. Do believe that it's going to inevitably transition, once we get further into the source material, because that's kind of how it felt like as I was reading it too. But I don't like calling it a harem. I don't think it's a harem. It's basically just like it's who can confess to whom first. It's not like he's running around and cheating on each other and having like just debauchery
I mean,
this and
he
there.
goes on a date with one of the girls, and the other two like follow them, and
Because
then enjoy the date with them.
yeah, exactly. And he goes on the date because he scored the highest in his class,
Third
or
highest.
one of the third
He
highest.
ranked
So
third in his class.
yeah, so that, and he promised her that he would go on a date with her.
I
But
know.
like I love how each of the girls has like stark personalities like from one another.
Yeah.
Like they're complete opposites, and yet somehow they all mesh together really well, and it's a fun watch. But yeah, again, loved it. Didn't think it was like anything stellar. Like my number one.
Mm. Which,
Wink
by the
wink.
way, halfway through you just talking now, it clicked as to what your number one is for me.
Hey, yeah.
But moving on real quick, just a couple other shows that we haven't touched upon it, or you've quickly touched upon them. Solo Leveling was one that like I've read the entirety
Oh,
of it. I really
yeah.
enjoyed it. I didn't think it was like anything special. Like it's one of those things that I was like, I think on a previous episode I was saying that this is the manhwa to get into. This is the show that you know will carry the manhwa into like the light. And I feel like to me it did, but it didn't. It was definitely the best manhwa adaptation, but at the
Hmm.
same time, I feel like the pacing was slowed down compared to what it could have been. I feel like they could have gotten a lot further maybe with with season 1, but they kind of slowed it down a bit for this season. So to me, I feel like while it was still enjoyable, it kind of slipped down in my rankings of hype and what I enjoyed this season compared to
Yeah.
other things.
I can't believe I forgot that because that was like one of the last anime I was watching.
You were literally watching it before we
No,
started recording.
I know, I know. Um, I see. I'm of the opposite mindset. Like, I would rather an anime take its time to establish what it wants to be. Uh, I know a lot of people, especially after the whole debacle with the episode 7.5 due to the voice actor catching COVID
Hmm.
whole situation, when they're like, everyone online flipped the switch. They were like, "This is ridiculous. This is a filler episode, and it's season one." It's like it's not on purpose. Calm
Shit
down.
happens.
Um, but I mean that alone showed me like just how popular it was, which I'm like, all right, cool, yeah. I mean, it had an immense following heading into this season, so it's not a shock that a lot of people watched it. But I think you're in the majority in that a lot of people were a little surprised at how little or limited action there was. And I didn't mind it so much. I thought there was the appropriate amount of action and intensity in it, like balanced with a very strong world building, character building, like just plot building piece to it too.
So
Like
when
there are there
oh, I
yeah,
was
go
gonna
ahead.
say just real quick, when I say that like it didn't get as far into it as I thought it was. It wasn't because I didn't want more action. Like, I know there's a ton of action
No, no,
to
no. Yeah,
come. The lack of action wasn't my nitpick for this. It's that I felt like they could have ended this season, or they could have gotten to a point in this season that they didn't, and it was just a bit more slow and methodical than I anticipated. So
yeah, and
what I was anticipating isn't what I got, but what we got was still very good. It
yeah,
just
and I guess
wasn't in my top 3 good.
I guess I should clarify in that I think more people expected it to move quicker, like to
Mm,
get through a lot of that. Like we'll just say, for lack of a better phrase, like the fluff in it, and get to
the meat and potatoes.
yeah. But again, as a new anime, especially if for those who haven't read it too, like I thought that it took its time appropriately to really set the tone for what the anime wants to be, right? Like there's gonna be action intensity to it, right? That's just the world that they live in. But there's gonna be a lot of like I guess internal struggles. There's going to be a lot of like mystery and like cloakedness to what actually is going on behind closed doors, right? Like that. There's a lot of moving parts to it, and the last thing you want to do is kind of rush through it
Yeah.
and forget some things, right? And have to like kind of circle back. So I thought, and I really enjoyed the fact that they took their time and did a very methodical approach to how they wanted to go through season one. But I know most of the people online were just screaming, just more dungeons, more battles, more blood. And it's like, okay,
Not necessary, but
we can
sure,
get there.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, and then real quick, because we're still good on time.
Yeah.
We're fine. Uh, Two other shows that I want to discuss real quick before we get into what we didn't watch, and then we'll go into our number ones.
Okay.
Uh, One that you haven't watched at all, bottom tier character Tomazaki-chan. Season 2. I am not done with this. I am on episode 10, so I've got like 3 episodes left. But I thought that the beginning of this season was awful.
Mm,
It had an arc that overstayed its welcome. It was an arc that lasted 3 or 4 episodes, and it shouldn't have. It really shouldn't have. It should have been a 2 episode thing, maybe 2.5, and it outstayed its welcome and was just, in my opinion, not necessary. But everything after that, I've thoroughly enjoyed. The plot progression with the main character Tomazaki-chan. I think that his story going forward was great. I thought that the dilemmas he's been presented have been fantastic. It's been fun. It's been mostly cheerful outside of the 3, 4 episodes, whatever it was at the beginning.
mm,
I thoroughly enjoyed it, but minus, I think that this season is dampened overall because of the beginning and how it started with that first arc. But overall, I think for a series that hasn't gotten a season 2, like it's getting its season 2 now, but it hasn't gotten a new season in, 5 or whatever years. I actually don't even know when season 1 came out. It's been a while.
mm.
Um, it's just I think that it's been good, and it didn't really, skip a beat as to what it was doing. I'm not, my face just blew up white because I'm not looking up when season 1 aired, which was 2021. Jesus, I thought it would. No, 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 no. That's
No,
not right.
that,
Is it?
I feel like I don't know.
No shit, it was 2021. Okay.
So not as old as you thought.
It's not as old as I thought. I definitely thought it came out like 5 years ago. So, I guess COVID time was a flat circle, so it just made
Time didn't
everything
exist
seem
during
longer.
COVID.
But
Yeah,
yeah, no,
time was
it
not real.
3 years still is it's a pretty long wait between seasons. I think that this one overall did a pretty serviceable job. Again, minus the first few episodes, but whatever. And then the last one I know you touched upon briefly as just kind of in your clump, The Witch and the Beast. You did not enjoy episode 1. I saw interest. I saw the intrigue there, and I was like, you know what? Give it the 3 episodes, see how it goes. And I think that this is like my dark horse of the season. I actually
Wow.
really enjoyed this. Like, this is number 4 or 5 for me on my list. Um,
Wow.
wow. Yeah, no, this honestly, this is like a 3 or 4 for me on my list because in the later episodes, they do a lot of world building in which they kinda give you the organization that they work for and how mysterious it is and all the different people that they kind of employ and their kind of hunt for these witches and the falsities of reports that they get and the different types of sorcery that's out in the world and all the kind of evils that are out in the world, and I think it did a really good job at giving us interesting characters that weren't just one side of a coin and they can show off. I mean, minus one character who was a bit one-sided, but like they gave you other characters that were more interesting and, you're kind of rooting for
Mhm.
throughout the series. So, on top of that, all the world building that they did, which I thought was great, um, it made this show honestly a hell of a lot better than I ever anticipated. So if you're looking for just a series that just out of nowhere was better than it should have been, give The Witch and the Beast 3 episodes. Give it 3 episodes of your time, and you'll know if you like it or not. I did like that halfway through the season, episodes 4 and 5 completely deviate from the main characters that you're used to. They go to like a side character that are also within the same organization
Mhm.
and just kind of give you a little side story there. I think because of what they told in that side story and just did more world building there to kind of give you more rules as to how things happen. I think that it was a lot like it was a good little break in between the major arcs that they get into after. So yeah, it's a bit of a darker show. I will mention that. Darker in the literal sense, but also just kind of content wise, it's a bit darker. I do very much enjoy it. I did very much enjoy it. It's still going on. There's 10 episodes out now, and I believe that's a 12 episode season. So we've got a couple more weeks of that to look forward to. So if you haven't started, you've got some time to kill before the spring season starts. Give it a try. But there's a handful of shows that I know I have not started that are still on my backlog of to start and to watch.
Mhm.
Um, I know you probably have a bunch as well. Is what in specific have you not started this season that you do want to watch?
Um, boy, I don't know if there's really not any show that I am dying to watch. I'll say,
Okay,
um, because I never started Mashal. Mashal wasn't really like an interest of mine. I thought my wife has read through the series, the manga, and she loves it. But she agreed that like season one was pretty meh, and I'm sure it got the amount of hype from the intro song alone for season two because season two, based on what I've seen, is just a tournament arc,
it is.
and I'm not a really big fan of just single season tournament arcs, so I'm good there. Um, like Ragna Crimson was cool on paper, sounded fun. I might watch it. There's a samurai. I can't remember what the
Oh,
name
the
of it
one
is.
on Max.
Yes, yeah, the one that people are raving about on Max. Which, God forbid, I go out and get a Max account. Um, like there's a lot that if I had the time I would go back and watch, but nothing where I'm like clamoring to find like a free weekend to just go back and binge. It's all shows that if I ever get to it, I'll get to it. There's nothing really that stood out as being like, all right, I need to sit down and watch this when I have the chance.
Yeah,
I'm already, I'm,
Ninja
yeah, I'm already just
Kamui, by
trying
the
to,
way.
yes, Ninja Kamui, thank you. Um, yeah, a lot of it was just hype, and a lot of it was like what was trending on social media, and I would just see clips of it, and I was like, yeah, it looks good. I might get to it at some point. Who knows? But I'm like just trying to get through this season of anime and prepare myself
For
mentally and
next
physically
season.
for, yeah, which, oh boy, there's a lot.
Yeah. No kidding. There are a decent handful of shows that I did not get to that I still really want to get to. Biggest one being Blue Exorcist, the newest season. I
Yeah.
before the season even started, I rewatched all of Blue Exorcist to like watch this new season, and I never started it. So for me, that's one of the big ones. Mashal season 2. I'm just waiting for the dub because I watched season 1. It was fine. It wasn't great, but it was fine. I will admit the season 2 intro song is a fucking bop and a half, but I know what I'm getting. I've read a half of the manga, so I know what I'm getting into for this season.
Mhm.
So it's just one of those things that I'm more interested in season 3 than I am this one. Another one that was highly suggested to me from a friend is The Wrong Way to Use Healing Magic. Buddy of mine who rarely will watch anything that not rarely watch anything that I don't suggest, but like he usually watches the big popular shows and I rarely hear from him watching something smaller. Was watching it and said, "Dude, if you haven't watched it, it's very funny." I was like, "Okay, fair enough. I'll give it a shot." Haven't given it a shot, but I've heard, I his comedy and my comedy are pretty similar, so I feel like that would be one that is on my definitely go back and watch list
Mhm.
because of that reason. But I think the one that I will be getting to eventually, because I've started the first 2 episodes, but I need to finish the rest of it, is Sandland. So the first
Oh
half
yeah.
of Sandland came out last week, and of course it's Hulu/Disney Plus, so no marketing, no nothing. It just fucking the first 7 episodes dropped, and that was that. Just
Mhm.
absolute garbage on Disney's part again. So, but I did watch the first 2 episodes, and despite it, everybody's opinions on all CGI, I really did enjoy it. I thought it was good. I think the animation is fluid, not as fluid as maybe Trigun was, but I think that it was a passable fluid and more than passable. Sorry, and good content. And I know that the passing of Akira Toriyama is still heavily on our minds, and this kind of you can look at this as being like, oh, they're just dropping it because of that, and then you realize no, the video game's coming out, and that's the reason why it's all coming out. um but I wish that they had marketed this a bit more because I had no idea this was coming out, absolute zero idea that this was coming out. So we're getting another part of season 4 Sandland. As to when, I don't know. I got to research that. But that's definitely one that I do want to go back and watch all of. So yeah.
Yeah.
And on to the final bit. Your number one show, our number one show, my number one show. What would you do? You want me to go first or you go first?
You can go first if you want. You keep saying our number one show, and
I
I'm
don't
like,
know.
it's
I know
not
it's
our
not our
number one
number one
show.
show, which I'm
It's
surprised that this
not.
wasn't in your top 3. My number one
No.
is Freerun. We haven't talked about it because I know I'm gonna gush over it. You're gonna gush over it a bit here, and then talk about your number one, which is fine. Like that's still on my to watch list,
Which
but
is which is fine. Which is fine.
it's on my to
Wow.
watch list. I did want to bring it up so you could just talk about it and gush about it. So we'll talk about Freerun. Freerun,
Wow.
I mean, from the get go, we knew it was going to be a great show. It's Madhouse. We knew it was going to be fantastic. We knew it was going to be great. The source material is beloved by a lot of people. I've read the first 6 volumes. I wasn't a huge fan of the manga itself, but it's one of those shows that it does a lot better as an anime. It's with all the added music, the motion of just kind of the still scenes and the more quieter scenes, and just even the voice acting. I think that brought a manga which to me was passable and others beloved into a better spectrum and into a better medium. I really, really thought that this is just one of those special shows that captivated me from the get go. Um, eh, there's not much more like it deserves all the roses it's getting online, and I thoroughly enjoy it. I can just we'll talk in circles about it, but yeah, no, it's a special show and it's a huge show for a lot of people for a darn good reason. I know that there's a lot of people that are like, there's not enough action for this action show or adventure show. It's an adventure. It's not necessarily always action. Um, it's a lot of world building. Like if I had to equate the world building to this, it would probably be. I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this. It would be a lot like Jobless Reincarnation, where they like methodically start season one slowly and show you the rules and give you kind of the lay of the land, and then flip it all on top of its head and do more world building.
Hmm.
Um, but to me, that it it's the best world building since then, and probably even not probably much better than Jobless Reincarnation, but it's the best to do it since then. I feel like, in my opinion, and I think because of the world building and the fun characters that it gives you, and the good action whenever there is action, I think that this show is just superb and my number one of the season, let alone last season. So
Yeah, I was gonna say, note it is core two
this
that
is
we're
core
talking about
two,
for winner.
and core two, for all intents and purposes, it is a tournament arc, which I
Hence why
notoriously hate.
it's not in my top three.
Which
The
I
yeah,
notoriously hate tournament arcs, but yeah, I
yeah,
enjoyed this one because it's not just battle, win, lose, battle, win, lose. It's, hey, here's a task, go do it.
yeah, yeah, and that aspect is fine. I think to draw a comparison to something other than anime, Frieren is just The Hobbit. Like if you enjoy The Hobbit, like the actual novel, not the movies, because I know it's the movies are polarizing, but like it is adventuring at its purest form, meaning that it is what you would imagine life to be like if you had to venture off to faraway lands with a small party that takes years and years and years to get to your destination. Like that is at its core what adventuring is like. And I think this anime embodies that perfectly. The reason why it's not in my top 3 is because this core of the second core of season 1 is less about the adventure piece and more about the world setting, we'll say, because it's not so much world building, it's the world setting, in that there's like a magical association. We learn a little bit more about the characters' backgrounds, which is great. We get a little bit more into the different regions and lands, and what the demons have been doing since the heroes party had defeated the demon king. Like that piece is excellent. You also get plenty of action scenes as well, which I know people were patiently waiting on. But like I thought like part one, core one of season one was infinitely stronger in that it is just the adventuring piece. And you get this nice back and forth of like what took place when the original heroes party banded together to go defeat the Demon King with like what the current Frieren and her gang of misadventurers is getting up to, right? All these different like life lessons she's been learning, all this growth between the characters. Like it's so fantastic to see. And then season or core 2 was a little bit more about like a singular focused mission on become first class mage.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. All right, that's fine.
Well,
But
I mean, they had a reason why, but so
yeah.
it's
No, I
the
mean there was a
continued
reason.
adventure, but yeah.
Yeah, it was a reason and a purpose, and it's a blockade in the adventuring, which happens to every single party. There's not a story that goes and then they adventured and nothing happened and they did it great. The end. Like things happen along the way. That's understandable, but I think
Yeah.
that's why I thought Core 2 was a little bit weaker in that sense because it you're kind of stuck in one place.
Yep.
There was kind of a stop to that adventuring piece, which I was enjoying so much. But again, not to say that it wasn't great. It was definitely my number 4. I loved it dearly, but it definitely didn't rise to my number 1.
It did for me. It was one of those things that I look forward to it week after week and watched it as soon as I could. So yeah.
The,
So then,
the,
if Freerun is not your number one and your number four, what is? Magically Average
uh,
is number one.
my number 1 is the anime that I cannot stop just blabbering about.
You fucking
Freaking
blabbermouth.
I absolutely adore this anime. It's the Dangers in My Heart. This anime, I thought season 1 was great. I thought that they did an excellent job adapting the manga because it's one of those really weird slice of life romance type stories in that like it's a character who is so off-putting on the outside, right? Like hates the world, like despises the popularity, thinks ill of everyone, like assumes everyone hates him, and it only wants the worst things to happen to him, so he kind of reciprocates that in his mind and how he views other people. To see a character like that turn into someone who is now grappling with the strongest emotions that you possibly can in trying to love another human being and expressing that in ways that you thought could not be imaginable like a year prior is such an incredible just twist to the story. I Every single episode has a very meaningful point to it. Not just for like one character, but for a number of characters in it. Right? It's not like every episode he's finally putting these pieces together. He is doing so, but it's always in different ways. Sometimes it's just through his own recognition of a situation and being like, I am so dense. How did I not see this? I need to rectify this. Sometimes it's through the actions of other people. Sometimes it's not even through actions at all. It's strictly just an acknowledgement of what has transpired and how far he has come to this point. Like those small moments of looking inward and realizing how much you've grown and actually taking into consideration your true feelings for someone is one of the most beautiful things to see in a romance anime. And this anime does it to perfection. I know that there are a number of different sites online and sources online that do like weekly anime rankings of different anime and like specifically characters or relationships and things like that. I get that, okay? The Dangers in My Heart throughout this entire season was consistently in the top like 3 spots across a number of them. In fact, one of them, Anime Trends Online, has The Dangers in My Heart, I think, sweeping the entire season, meaning that they never gave up their number 1 spot to any of the anime. We're talking Frieren, we're talking Apothecary Diary, Solo Leveling, all of them. It fucking beat every single one week to week to week, and there's a reason for it, because this anime showed what you can do with what is on paper a very, touching romance.
Yeah.
But put into an anime, it becomes so much more.
Yeah.
Like the choreography, the sound, like the sound design and music choices, the animation quality alone. Like I really enjoyed the fact that they kept the art style from the manga too and didn't try to make it something different. Like they kept the characters true to themselves from the source material, which is always a nice thing to see. I could go on and on and on. This one is hands down the number 1 for the season, and I cannot wait to see more of it. It is purity, like romance, love, emotions at its just purest forms.
Yeah, and this was the show that's on my to watch list that I need to go back and watch it. I was gonna start it on the plane ride to PAX, and then I saw Sandland, and I was like, let's watch Sandland because it's 7 episodes.
Now you
And
need
then I
to
fell asleep and didn't watch most of Sandlands or any of that. So
no. This is I say this knowing fully well that I had watched most of it while working out, but this is one that you need to like
sit down and appreciate.
appreciate.
Yeah,
Yep, exactly.
well aware.
It is, yeah. And especially if you haven't read the source material too, like, and you're kind of going into this blind, like it is just a joy to watch.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for watching. We greatly appreciate it, or watching, listening. It is a podcast after all. We greatly appreciate you listening this far. If you want to know what we are watching next season, we made an episode 2 weeks ago about what we are watching next season and an overview of everything coming out. So go ahead, check that out. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. So until next time, Spark Triumph, we'll see you then.